So then, we are back with more understandings from the time of the Second Tabernacle services, where we find in the Aramaic English translation of the word. This translation comes from the original manuscripts of the prophets of the Itzaelic lineage. So then, indicating for us the understanding of the time of the end, as per then Yirmiyahu, the 61st chapter, then we find the prophet explaining then the areas of tabernacling related with the Second Tabernacle services, where he then, the prophet, was explaining the cities laid waste for many centuries. There is a very important understanding of it. When you are thinking of tabernacling, timing of the earth does not count. However, events takes place timing in the earth. But when you were speaking of tabernacling, time does not count. That's why then during the time of Yirmiyahu, when he was explaining then the cities, first and second tabernacle services had to be online. In other words, the first had to be completed, and then the second had come, and then the time of the seat, and then the restoration period. So then, during the last 1,000 years, from 1009 to 2009, then we find ourselves during the time of the seat, where nations then they were on their own. Any kind of a leadership would be valid as long as they had then the understanding of it, and then the provisions for it, and then the leadership for it, and so on and so forth. Then each nation would have a chance of being the top. During the time of restoration, these guide is no longer available. After the time of the seat, then the directives of the world went back to the hands of the Creator. And then, as per the instructions, then we find there is a country related with production of bulk. And there are countries then working in its own computerized systems. Then these specific nation related with production of bulk with a neutral system amongst the nations where they do trade. And then we find tabernacling from the viewpoint of the first human being contacted by the Creator, and then later came Yitzhak. Then you understand tabernacling. So as far as nations trying to compare themselves and try to run for the top no longer exists. The objective is what nations should not do. Back during the time of the 1,000 years, people were always concerned what they should do, because there was then the leadership of the world was at random. During this time, where then the leadership is no longer available, the nation should be concerned then what they should not do. There is no run anymore for the top. The top is already taken. We understand the time and the season, and we can expect then the holy city is returning. We already understand where is going to be the first city, and we understand that the Ishmaelites are going to be then dealing with nations after the Chinese system then is implemented. We understand that shortly 36 months, then if we do not organize our country, then obviously the monetary system is going to crash, but it's not going to crash because we know what to do in terms of then deducting taxes instantly every time there is earning. So then the government has a mixture of printing versus then earning via online. And then in the future, these relationships are going to be then obviously conversed at the country of Arabia. It's very evident. There is another link we understand then from Galah or Revelation related with Yohanan, and he saw the vision of these mountains burning. So you can understand what's going on in the area of the world. But those are for later. We are much earlier than the period where then Yohanan saw those specific visions. At the moment, we understand there is no race for the top anymore. quite interestingly, the race for the top is related with your ability as a country of coming up with your own system of taxation instantly. When nations can manage the deducting of taxes instantly every time there is earning, then they are on top. After these comes the Chinese system neutral, where each of the citizens with a computer, then they can do trade online worldwide. So this is what then is coming layer-wise of Gentile speaking. As far as tabernacling, we already understand. The city is returning. And then the relationship with the first holy city and the Ishmaelites, and then the decisions of the nations then is going to depend upon Galah. Then you have to understand the layer of testifying on behalf of the Messiah of the returning of the truth. So then the Galah must be done simultaneously when the first holy city is being built. People must be informed of what's coming, so then they are in line with the prophecies yet related, tailor-made for each nation. So then the understanding is every nation should then take care of their own computerized system, taxes, deductions, real time, every time there is then an earning. Then they can manage their expenses, and then when the Chinese system neutral comes, then people do trade online, and then the government has then an open circuitry of those financial institutions where they can deduct the taxes from. So what we used to do in the past is no longer valid. What nations should not do. This is what then the nations should be thinking of. Back during the time of 1,000 years, what they should do have to know and then come up with an answer and then take leadership. From this time would be what not to do, because the leadership is already taken. So there is then a relationship with the holy cities and the Ishmaelites, and then the decisions amongst the nations. Has to be done step by step, steps of formation. Has to find first, then the holy site, then the constructing of the first holy city, as per instructions. From there, then you find Zechariah. The people coming out of the holy site and going to Jerusalem to observe the feasts. Then the city closes. Then starts the relationship of the Israelites and the Ishmaelites. And during this time, then Galah in the region should be very known. So then when the prophets, they are speaking of a specific understanding in the spirit, then they understand what's coming from. Then you understand the 6th chapter of Galah or Revelation, those people making testimonies on behalf of the Messiah. So then we understand what's coming in the future. However, the intensity of these relationships, the intensity of the decisions is going to be directly dependent upon the Galah, or how many Galahs are being given to the nations. So they understand then what the prophet is speaking of, what purpose they are doing what they should be doing. If they don't understand the tabernacling behind the decisions, then they would find themselves in trouble. So there is a definite balance, understanding the relationship from both brothers, and then obviously the relationship amongst the nations. So please stay tuned. A whole lot more coming up, but first comes the holy site, must be found. It must be the legitimate site, so then other nations, they won't be deceiving as we were deceived for more than 1,000 years. With scriptures that do not exist. That's why it's so important finding the holy site and then observing what is on the instructions and making sure it's done as per such.